Hello friends and welcome back to part 21 of the series where we'll be creating an Instagram clone in FlutterFlow and Supabase. Alright, so to actually create this reply section, we can use this thing called Recursive Components in FlutterFlow. So let's see how we can do that right now. Right, so jumping over to my FlutterFlow dashboard over here, we'll select our comment section component. And if you notice this testing file over here, this testing folder, don't worry about that. This is not needed. I was just testing some stuff, the recursive components for this video. Alright, so to work on the recursive component, we'll actually modify our comment row component right here. So now for our comment row component, we want to wrap this container inside a column. And we want to also rename this container as, or let's rename it as primary comment. So primary comment. And now inside our column over here, we want to actually add a list view. And this list view will host all of the secondary comments over here, or secondary replies rather. So the replies to this comment. So for this, we can just rename it as replies. And now inside this replies list view is actually where we will make use of recursive components in FlutterFlow. So inside this list view, we can actually choose components. And now we can actually select our comment row component itself. So what we are doing now is that we are calling our row component again over here. With the list view selected, we can also add some left padding so that we are able to differentiate between the different sections. Now you can see that there's some sort of hierarchy over here. This is the main root comment followed by this secondary comment, which also has its own sort of secondary reply section. But now we also have to give our replies list view a query. So we can go to backend query over here and we can add a query. For this, we'll add a Supabase query. For the table, it will be our full comments view table, and we want to reply a list of rows. For the filter, it will be where our parent comment is equal to our component parameters comment row, and we want to choose the ID. Then we can click on confirm. And now we can see that our list view is being generated dynamically. But one more thing that we have to do is we have to go to our comment row component over here, and we actually have to pass in our comment row parameter. So for this one, it won't be the same as our component parameter here. Instead, we want to pass in from our full comments view row, so the children of our list view. And we want to choose this Supabase row instead. So basically how this recursive component works is that we have a primary component or a primary comment over here. And then we are also generating a list view of replies. So this replies is basically this replies to this primary comment, because the parent comment ID is equal to the ID of this primary comment. And in this reply, we are basically calling this component again. So this now becomes our primary comment, and the following list view over here becomes our replies list view, which is now filtering based on the parent comment ID of this new primary comment. So basically that is how recursion works, and it is able to continue all the way for an infinite amount of time. Alright, so now that we have our updated comment row component, we can go back to our comment section component, and you can see that the hierarchy is now there as well. Now from a user experience point of view, if we have all of the replies showing in this hierarchy over here, it may seem a bit cluttered and messy. So I actually want to hide all of the replies first and only show the primary comments. So how we can do that is we can go back to our comment row component, and we can select our replies list view over here. Under properties, we can add some conditional visibility. So for this conditional visibility, we would actually have to go to our root comment row component, and I want to add a local page state variable. So this will be, so for our component state variable, let's say view replies as the name. and for the type, it will be of type boolean. And for the initial field value, let's just set it as false, since we don't want the user to be able to see the replies unless they click on the reply button. So we can click on confirm, and now in our comment row component, or rather our list view, replies list view over here, we can add the condition for our conditional visibility. So this will simply be our component state and view replies boolean variable. Alright, but now we need a way to actually show our replies. So how we can do that is we can go to our reply text over here, and in the action flow editor, when we tap on it, we can just set our component state, and we'll set the view replies component state to be true. So we set the value to be true. Alright, so now when the user taps on this reply button, then it will show the replies. If not, it won't show all the replies, only the primary comment. Right, so now we can actually go back to our comment section component. And currently, if we go to our main list view over here, you can see that under our query, we are only filtering for where the post ID is equal to our post ID. And so it's basically returning all of the rows in our comments table where our post ID is equal to our post ID. But we only want to return the primary comments and not the actual replies to the comment. So we have to add an additional filter. And for this filter, we have to set it where our parent comment. So our parent comment is null. So now it'll only get the primary comment and not the actual replies to the comment in this list view. Alright, so now the next thing that we have to do is we have to find a way to actually allow the user to reply to comments. So if we take a look at our icon button here, the action flow editor, in the Supabase insert row action, we are actually not inserting anything inside our parent comment column over here and is left as null. So now we need to find a way where when the user clicks on the reply icon of any of these comments, we need to get that comment ID and pass it through this icon button to insert it into our Supabase row. But how can we do that since we do not have access to the state of our comment row component inside our comment section component? So how we can do that is we can actually take the state in our comment row component and store it somewhere else that is accessible to our comment section component. And the best way to do this, the best place to do this is actually in our app state variable over here. So we can go to app values over here, which is this folder icon. You can see that I already added an app state variable, but this was for testing purposes, so I'll just add a new app state variable. So for this, we can give it a name, selected comment ID. For the field type, it will be of type integer, and we can click on create. And now we have a new app state variable. So what's great about app state variables is that they are accessible throughout the whole app. So any component, any page can access app state variables. So once we've created it, we can go back to our widget tree. And now let's go back to our comments row component first. So now whenever the user clicks on this reply text over here, not do we only want to show the other replies, but we also want to save this current comments ID inside our app state. So we can open the action flow editor, and after we update this component state, we can add a new action, and we can search for state. And there's this action to update app state. We can choose the field that we want to set as our selected comment ID, and we can set the value to be equal to our component parameters comment row ID. And one important thing to note here is this update type. So if you click on this drop down, you can see that we have 4 options over here. No rebuild, which basically means that it doesn't update the UI for any component. Rebuild current components only, so it only rebuilds our current comments row component. It also has other options such as rebuild containing page, as well as rebuild all pages. So the option that we want to choose here is actually rebuild containing page. Since when we click on this reply icon, reply, we want to update our app variable, our app state variable, and we also want to update the UI inside our comment section component. So it is necessary to rebuild the containing page and not only rebuild the current component. So yeah, that is something to note as well. Okay, so after we update our app state, we can go back to our comment section component, and now we can actually add some text to give some indication to which comment the user is replying to, such as in this Instagram app, such as replying to blah blah blah. So let's go ahead and add that. So with our text field selected over here, let's wrap this widget inside of a column. And for the text field, we will set the width to infinity. And now inside this column, let's add a row. Let's bring it up. And inside this row, let's add text as well as an icon. So for this text, we will tap on this, and we actually want to use a combined text. Well, for the first text, it will be replying to. And for the second text over here, we can just put it as our app state and selected comment ID for now. We'll change that later to the actual username. Now, we also want to set the expansion to fully expand it to push this icon all the way to the right. And we want to change this icon to a clear icon. Right. Let's also decrease the icon size to 18, perhaps. Yep. And let's add a bit of padding to this row. So a bit of bottom padding of 4. Okay, so now we will add the clear icon as well. So on the on tap action, we want to clear our app state, or reset our app state rather. So we want to update our app state. We want to set our selected comment ID field, and here we can just do clear value. And last but not least, we also want to go to our icon button, open the action flow editor, and now inside our insert row component, we can actually insert our parent comment field. So this value will simply be our app state variable, our selected comment ID. One more thing that we can do is we can actually go to this row over here, and I only want to show replying to blah 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 when we actually click on the reply comment. We can go ahead to conditional visibility, we can toggle it on, and we can set a condition. So the condition will be a single condition. For the first value, it will just be our app state selected comment ID is set. So we can click on confirm, and now that should be it for our reply function. So let's go ahead and test it out. Alright, so let's try commenting on this post over here, this cute munch munch cat post. And currently there are no comments, so it's all blank, but it looks like this row that we wanted to not be visible is actually showing over here. And that is because if we check our debug panel over here, we go to our app states, our selected comment ID has a default value of 0, not null. So actually, this inside our row, for our conditional visibility inside our row widget over here, instead of this, it should be is not equal to 0. And we also have to actually change our query on our list view. So instead of the second filter over here being is now, we should actually set it as is not equal to and 0. Alright, so that should fix it up, and let's try it again. Okay, so let's try commenting again. And you can see now that the top row does not show anymore. Okay, so now if we try to comment, strange, it seems like it's not commenting anything, and it's also not updating in our Supabase database. So usually for these types of situations, what I like to do is I like to bring up the Google Inspector window. So on Windows is Ctrl-Shift-J. Now you can see the Google console over here. So if I try to send a comment again, you can see that there's this error over here, a post 409 error conflict. If we go see the exception message, it seems that there is an insert or update on table comments which violates a foreign key constraint. So if we take a look and try to see what's happening here, it's most likely because our parent column over here has a foreign key relation to the comments table itself. Now, and currently we're trying to update And currently we're trying to insert a row where our parent comment is 0, but there's no row with ID 0 over here. So this is a violation of the foreign key constraint, which results in us not being able to actually insert a row. So what we should do here is that if it is a root comment, a primary comment, then our parent comments should actually be null and not to 0. So we have to change it back. So inside our Supabase action over here under parent comment, instead of giving it a value, we'll remove this first. And now we can actually choose a conditional value instead. So for this, we can search if our app state selected ID comment value is equal to 0. So if it is equal to 0, then the value over here, we can just choose a constant and we can choose null. Else, we'll just set it as our app state selected comment ID variable. So after changing that, we actually have to go ahead and change. Alright, so we don't have to change the conditional visibility on our row over here, but what we do have to change is our query on our list view over here. So we have to go back and change our filter to. So we have to change it back to our initial filter. So we have to choose is not null. So we confirm. And now we can reload test mode again to see if all is good. Okay, so let's try it again. Okay, so our comment seems to have inserted properly inside our Supabase database, but it's not showing over here in the UI. So, yes, so I actually did this Supabase query wrong. It should actually be, so for the filter tool, it should actually check if it is null. So if it is null, because only the primary comments will have a null value inside the primary comment ID column over here. So yep. So now if we try commenting again, you can see that the comment now appears. If we try to reply to this comment, nothing changes here, but you can see that our selected comment ID is now 18. So our app state is being updated, but our UI over here in this component is not being updated. And I think the problem over here is inside our actual comment row component. So let's go to our reply text again and open the action flow editor. And I think the problem here is because of the update type. So sometimes rebuilding the containing page is not enough. So we actually have to rebuild all pages instead. So rebuilding all pages may be more intensive, resource intensive, but it's also a better way of ensuring that all of your UI elements in your app gets updated. So let's do one last instant reload, and after this instant reload, we should have everything there in our app working perfectly. So fingers crossed. Let's comment on this post and let's try to reply this post. Yep, you can see that now we're replying to 18, which is the ID for this comment. Let's add a reply. Yes, perfect. Now the reply shows up here. Let's stop replying to this and let's try going out. If we go back in, you can see that now we only see the first comment. So let's do a second root comment. But now for the first comment, we can actually go ahead and press this reply button. And you can see the second reply. And now we're also replying to this first comment. We want to reply to this other comment. We are replying to 19 now. And you see that it sort of follows this hierarchical structure. If we close this and go back, we can open the replies to the first comment. We can also open the reply to the reply of the first comment in this fashion. Alright, great. So everything is working as it should, and now our users are able to reply to comments, which is an awesome functionality. Alright, so that wraps it up for this video, and in the next video, we'll actually be working on our user following function, and we'll be covering the concept of many-to-many relationships. So I hope you're excited to learn more about database architecture, and I'll see you in the next video.